you have interest due on, a daily basis, every day the loan balance is in essence, the loan balance, if you were to pay it off, is increasing. Even though the principal amount is staying the same, the payoff is increasing because you're adding interest to it every day. And so accrued interest just means the interest that has built up since the last payment. Because every time you make a payment, you pay the interest down to zero.
And then more of it goes towards the actual loan payment.
What was that now?
Then more of that money of your monthly payment goes to the actual loan payment.
You mean progressively on a monthly basis? Because that has nothing to do with accrued interest. Accrued interest is within a month itself.
Yeah.
So there's no more of it going toward principal because you're only talking about 1 month, one payment. Accrued interest resets to zero every time you make a payment. If you're asking the bigger question of, as time goes on, does more of my monthly payment get allocated toward principal and less toward interest? Then the answer to that is yes, but that's not accrued. That doesn't have anything to do with accrued interest. Accrued interest and interim interest are both expressions of a portion of a month worth of interest. Either the portion of the month that's already happened, which is accrued interest, or the portion of the month that has not happened, which is interim interest.
So let's say for this month, when would you pay this month's interest for September?
In October 1st. If you're making the normal monthly payments, in the course of making normal monthly payments, you pay on the 1st of every month, and you are paying the interest that accrued in the month before. So interest is accruing on a daily basis throughout the month of September. And then when you get to October 1, you are paying off that accrued interest.
So then you don't actually pay it off at the end of the month. You pay it off like the first day of the next month.
The first day of the following month for the previous month.
Yeah, I think that was the part that was getting me messed up.
That's sort of a distinction without a difference, right? I mean, whether you pay it on the 30th or the 1st, there's not much of a difference there. I mean, that's not some like big differentiation. It's not like you need to memorize that one way or the other. You just need to understand that whenever you make a mortgage payment, you're paying for interest that's already built up in the previous 30 days.
It's the only time you would pay it in term would be when there's like a sale, like you sell the house.
Whenever a new loan is being created, there's interim interest, which is interest for the remaining portion of the month that the loan is created. That most commonly happens when a property is sold, because that's the most common time when somebody takes out a new mortgage loan is on the day they purchase the property. But it's not the only time. If you refinance a mortgage, for example, that new loan that you're taking out as part of the refinance is going to have interim interest for the remainder of that month. So interim interest is anytime a new loan is being started.
Okay. And just I think the last part that was getting me messed up about the whole situation was, so if the seller would be selling their house, wouldn't they be paying 2 payments in that month that they're selling? Like one for the previous one and then one at the closing? Yes
and no. They're paying their regular monthly payment, yes. But when they get to closing, they're not really making a payment on their loan so much as they are paying it off in total.
Paying it off.
So when they get to the day of closing, if they're selling their house, it's not a loan payment. It is the payoff. It is the full balance plus any interest that has built up since their last payment. And that's the full payoff amount of the loan at that point in time.
So they would be making a payment in August 1, but they would also have to pay off the days that up to the day of closing.
That is correct, right? Because the interest has continued to accumulate throughout that month. So if they made a payment on August 1 and they were closing on August the 12th, well, they owe for 12 days worth of interest. So basically they owe the outstanding balance of the loan plus 12 days of interest.
Yeah, it's just in one of one of your recordings, you said that they wouldn't have to pay for August, and so that messed me up because I was wondering when they would pay for July's interest.
That was the August 1 payment.
Yeah, the August one.
Yeah, the August 1 payment takes care of July's interest.
Okay, I got it now. Thank you.
Good, good. So I'm gonna, if it's okay with everybody, I'm gonna skip over questions 1 and 2 on the worksheet, which we're just calculating. Are we all okay with just calculating annual interest and then converting that to monthly? If not, that's entirely fine, by the way. I just don't want to waste your time. Are we all okay with I mean, so let's just do 1 just to show you, so we'll just do B here real quickly. All right. So if we were calculating annual interest on this one in B, it's always the loan balance, which is $215,000, times the annual interest rate, which is 4.25%.
And that gives you $9,137.50.
What was that number again, Candace?
Oh, I didn't know my speaker was on. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I appreciate it. You were helping me out. And listen, how awesome is it that I know your voice? I didn't even have to look up to know who was talking. Yeah, like I knew exactly who it was. So
it gives us $9,137.50.
Okay, that sounds right to me. Everybody agree with that number? If you calculating the annual interest?
Travis, on the T-bar, can you fill out that T-bar without actual numerics?
Sure.
So I can copy it on my master of T-bar list?
How's that? Is that what you wanted?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So our annual interest is equal to the loan balance times the interest rate. And so in that case, that's $9,137.50. Now, in the next question, it just basically asks you to take those numbers and convert them to monthly. Well, if this is an annual number, if this $9,137.50 is an annual number, how many months are there in the year? If we want to break that down into monthly, we need to divide by 12, right?
Yes.
So 91, 37, and 50 cents divided by 12, that would be 761 and 45 or 46 cents. And listen, don't worry if you write down 761.45. Don't worry if you write down 761.46. I can assure you that on the test, rounding will never matter as far as your final answer goes. And so it's really how much of a perfectionist you want to be. But they will never give you 2 answers that are so close together that rounding would make a difference. Is everybody okay with that? I want to take that worry away from you. It's not going to matter. And here's why that number is so important. Because we make that payment monthly. So the amount of monthly interest is really the number that matters to us in most cases. And it's also important from a conceptual standpoint to remember that math is only good for 1 month. What do I mean when I say that math is only good for 1 month? Because the next month is going to be different. Why is the next month going to be different?
Because your loan balance is going to
Because the
change.
loan balance is lower.
Yeah, I heard several of you say it. Sharon said it, Charlene said it, and I think a couple of us chimed in. The loan balance is going to go down. Payment. It may only go down a tiny amount, but it does go down. And so if you look at, the basic math here, if my loan balance is lower, then my annual interest has to be a little bit lower the following month, doesn't it?
Yes.
And so remember, anytime you're calculating interest on a loan, you're really only looking at like a snapshot in time for that particular month. The only time that would be different is if you had a term loan or interest-only loan. If you had an interest-only loan, how much would your monthly payment be on this loan if it was an interest-only loan?
$761.46.
$761.46. And if that was your monthly payment, how much of the loan balance would you be paying off?
None.
None.
0. And so every month you would pay $761.46, and every month the loan balance would stay the same. But those are pretty rare loan types. Most loans are amortized which means we are paying the balance down over time. Remember that? It's a distinction. The loan balance is coming down over time. That's what amortized means. Okay. So do we feel okay here about just annual going to monthly? Just as kind of, basic sort of rule of the road. Okay. So now look at number 3. It says calculate the interest owed on a new purchase loan made at 6% annual interest and 80% loan to value. So this has a little bit of a wrinkle in it, in the sense that they did not give us the actual loan amount. What they gave us was a purchase price or a value, and they gave us a loan to value ratio. Can't we multiply those two together to get the loan amount or the principal balance? Doesn't that make sense? That we can do that? So on a question like this, the first thing I need to do is calculate my loan amount. And the way I'm going to do that is going to say my value of the property or purchase price is $450,000. And my loan to value ratio is 80%. So my loan amount
360,000.
is $360,000. That's not what they asked me for. They asked me for interest. But now that I have the loan amount, can I calculate the interest?
Yes.
Yes.
So I can take my $360,000 loan amount and I can multiply that times the 6% annual interest rate.
21,600.
And that gives me $21,600 in annual interest.
Okay, Travis, I'm sorry, Travis, I did it a little different, but I got the $21,600, but I thought I was wrong. So I just said 450,000 times 6% times 80%.
Well, so here's what I'll tell you, Candace. It works mathematically because with multiplication, it doesn't matter what order you put things in. But conceptually, let me tell you why that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I'm not borrowing 6% of that $450,000.
Okay.
What you never did was actually calculate the loan balance.
Okay.
So if I had asked you how much were they borrowing, you'd have never been able to give me that number.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to give you that number.
And so it's much better to follow that sort of progression. I'm not, I'm not calling you down. I'm just saying for your purposes, it'll be much better if you go in that route of, okay, first I need the loan balance. And then I need to get to the interest.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And of course, number 4, they want us to calculate, what the monthly interest is on that same loan. Well, that's just a matter of, again, of taking the $21,600 and dividing it by 12, because we're going from annual to monthly. That is $1,800. We all good there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Travis,
Yes.
I know nobody want to hear this, but can you go over the whole thing again? Number 3, I mean.
Yeah, number 3, sure.
Yeah.
So here's Charlene, what they're asking us for, to calculate the annual interest.
Okay.
When we're being asked to calculate the annual interest, we know we're using this formula right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's got to pop in your brain. So you look at and say, what do I need to get to the annual interest? I need 2 things, the interest rate, and I need the loan balance. I need to know how much money I'm actually borrowing. Does that make sense? Okay. If I look at the question, well, they gave me the interest rate. I mean, they gave me that.
Okay.
But they never actually gave me the loan balance. And so that tells me I've got to back up a step. I need to know how much the loan balance is, how much this borrower borrowed. And
Okay.
that's where that loan to value ratio comes in. Because this formula right here will allow us to calculate a loan balance, the amount borrowed. And that is just the purchase price times the loan to value ratio. Basically,
Okay.
that's how lenders calculate how much they're willing to loan you. They say, we will not loan you more than, and it could be 80% or 90% or 95% of the property's value. In this case, 80%. And so therefore, we calculated that even though the purchase was for this 450 here, we only borrowed 80% of that. So our loan is for 360.
Okay, so we say 450,000 times 80%.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
And that gives you the 360,000
$360,000.
loan
Okay.
amount, which now we can use to calculate the interest on that loan. Because now
Okay,
we
that's
know the loan amount and the interest rate.
okay. So that's what after you find out the loan amount, then you turn around and you do the 360,000 times 6%.
That's
And
right.
that's what, okay, I got it.
And that's your annual interest.
Okay, because I was just getting confused because with the top one, where you have the annual interest on top and then the loan balance and interest rate, and then at the number 3, it went to loan principal, but I'm realizing it's the exact same thing.
It is the same thing. That's right. It is. It's the same thing. But the big thing to recognize is I can't get to an interest payment without knowing the loan amount. And I was never told the loan amount. So I have to get there first. So if you look at, so let's look at the number 5, Charlene, because that's sort of the whole thing tied into one little neat package. It says calculate the monthly, actually, let's do number 6, because that ties really all of it together. So if we look at number 6, it says, what's the daily interest charge for a 5% annual interest, 80% loan to value loan made on a $425,000 purchase? So find what they want. They want daily interest, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I'm calculating interest, I have to calculate annual interest and then break it down. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
And so the formula for annual interest always looks like this. The annual interest is equal to the loan balance or the principal, means the same thing, times the interest rate. So let's see if they gave me those things. Well, I can go hunt out, here's the interest rate, right? Would you agree with me?
Yes.
They just gave me that?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
I've got that number. I don't need to do any work for it. But how about this loan balance over here? Did they give me the loan balance anywhere?
No.
They didn't. But what they gave me is, and I'll highlight them a little bit different color. They gave me a purchase price,
Okay.
and they told me I was borrowing 80% of that purchase price.
Right.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
It does.
Okay. So that's where I turn to something like this, and I say, okay, my loan balance or my principal, same thing, is going to be equal to my purchase price times that loan to value ratio, that 80% loan to value. And I know the purchase price, they gave it to me, it's right there. So there's that 425.
Okay.
So what am I going to do with those two numbers to come up with the loan balance?
Multiply it.
That's right. There you go. So 425 times the 80% loan to value, that's $340,000 for a loan balance. And I can just slide that number right over here into that formula, because that's what I needed to be able to complete that formula for my annual interest. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so if I slide that $340,000 over here
And times it times 5%.
by 5%, well, my annual interest, I'm gonna write this down, my annual interest
17.
equals $17,000. Do you see where that number comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But they didn't
Yes.
ask me for annual, they asked me for what?
Daily.
Daily. And how many days are there in a year in this class?
360.
360. So what am I going to do with that $17,000 in annual interest to get it down to daily?
Divided.
By
Okay. 360.
360. That's right. And that is $47 and about 22 cents per day
Oh, wow. 17.
in interest.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Brittany, we can do number 7 for sure.
$42.07. Okay.
I got 47.22. That sound about right to everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, so then Brittany asked about number 7. And number 7 is a really great question because it really just builds on the exact same thing we did. This was the question Avi started off with at the beginning. And what is accrued interest? When we talk about this, what is accrued interest? Accrued interest is interest that is built up. So accrued equals the past, equals built up. And if you'll remember, I said anytime you're dealing or accumulated, I like that, Amber, right? It's an interest that has accumulated over time. But whenever we deal with either accrued interest or interim interest, remember I said you are always dealing with a portion of a month, never more than 1 month. Y'all remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accrued interest is always a portion of a month. And so in this case, this number, this date right here is really important.
18.
So if we're looking at the 18, how many days are there in the past since that last payment was made, which was made on June 1st?
18.
18 days. So what we're really asking for here is how much is 18 days of interest? Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
The accrued interest is just 18 days worth of interest on this loan. Well, if you go back and look at number 6, they were saying, how much is it per day? The only wrinkle we've added in here is how much is it for 18 of those? So does it make sense that we're going to do the same thing? We're going to come up with daily interest, but just multiply it by 18 days? Is that okay for everybody?
Yes.
So let's figure out our interest. Now remember, I can't start with calculating daily interest. I always have to calculate annual interest. That's the only formula I have. And we know that we need the loan balance or the principal, and we need the interest rate to come up with the annual interest. Okay? Let's see if they gave us those things. Did they tell us what the loan balance was?
Yes.
Looks like it did to me. Looks like right here, they told me that the loan balance was $250,000. So I'm going to go with that. Did they give me an interest rate?
Yep.
6.5.
6.5%. So I don't need to do any more figuring out. I got it. Whenever you have, here's a big clue. If you've ever got 2 numbers in a T-bar filled in, you can stop hunting and go ahead and calculate that third one. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
If you've got 2 of the 3, go ahead and do the math, whether it's division or multiplication, and fill it in. And so that's going to be $250,000 times 6.5% interest. That's $16,000 $250 in annual interest. Now, but reminder of what we want here now. They said they want 18 days of interest. So the first thing I have to do, I can't deal with that number 18 yet. I got to get down to a daily rate. How do we get from annual down to daily?
Divide by 360.
Divide it by 360. That's going to get us down to daily. Equals 45 and about 14 cents per day times 18 days. Looks like to me about $812.50 or so
Mm-hmm.
in accrued interest.
And that's when I say, booyah.
For you.
Hey, Travis,
Yes.
whenever you have a date and the word accrued, could we in our heads, as a rule of thumb, take the number on the date and times it and know that that's the number we're working with?
Yes, as long as it's accrued.
So
If-
we can associate accrued and date as the true number for multiplication.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Because
Now,
that's how I had it in my head. I just wasn't sure.
interim, you got to do a little bit more work because interim, if they had, could we have done interim interest on this same loan?
Mm-hmm.
But interim interest wouldn't have been from the 1st to the 18th. It would have been from the
18th to the 30th.
to the 30th. So there would have been 13 days worth of.
Right, it would have been the 12 plus the day we're on,
That's right.
which
That's
would have been the
exactly right.
13.
So we could have done interim interest on it as well, but they wanted accrued. Now here's where I'm going to go ahead and do number 8 because what you're going to find is that's not going to be the question. The question is actually going to be 7 and 8 combined on the test. What they're going to want to know is what is the payoff of that loan? Because here's what they want you to understand. The payoff, how much do we actually owe as far as the loan balance? They gave us that number, didn't they?
Yeah.
$250,000. But if I'm paying it off, isn't it going to be
Less.
$150,000 plus the accrued interest?
Mm.
Because if I'm paying it off as of June 18th, I owe those 18 days worth of interest. See, that balance was as of June 1. What have we done every single day since then? Every day,
Add
we
interest.
Eight interest.
another $45.14. Does everybody follow me on that?
Yes.
So how do we do number 8? Real simple. What's it going to look like?
We add the
Add the 800
plus the interest.
Plus the interest.
interest.
And so the payoff on that loan, this pen is weird, by the way, this multicolor, sparkly. I don't know about all this. But the payoff on that loan is going to be $250,812.50. And by the way, so here's a very practical question. They won't ask you this on the test, but it will help you with the test, I think, to understand it, is simply to say, if we closed on the 19th, would that payoff number be different? Would it be more or less?
$45
More.
It would be
$45 more.
$45.14 more if we went a day late. If we closed a day earlier, it would be $45.14 less, because accrued interest is going to go up or down based on your day of closing. At least I'm glad to. How do we feel about 7 and 8? Kind of compacted as a question. Pretty good. Okay.
We're good as long as you're with us.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be
That's
with
the whole thing.
I'll be with you during the exam. I can help you. But there's a difference, you know.
But can you talk?
But my force field will be with you. So,
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
Take
make a little
that.
Travis doll and put him in my pocket when I take my
Yes.
state exam.
We just have to think
That
back.
sounds too much like a voodoo doll. Don't do that.
I know, right? That did sound a little creepy after it came out.
Putting pins in it. All right, number 9 really is just the combination of those two questions. It says calculate the payoff of a mortgage loan issued at 4.75% interest with a principal balance of $318,650 if the loan is paid off on the 20th of September. This is really just combining everything that we just did, because we know the payoff of any loan, the payoff is going to always be the loan balance plus any accrued interest. Does that make sense for everybody? That a payoff is just whatever the balance was of the loan as of the last payment, plus the interest that has accrued on that loan. So just glancing at this, Melissa said we could do it this way. Do we know how many days of interest, just at like quick glance, do we know how many days of interest we're going to accrue here?
20. Yes, 20.
We're going to accrue 20 days of interest. So another way to say this is the loan balance, which is $318,650 plus 20 days of interest. Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
For our payoff?
Yes.
So that's the math we need to figure out. We need to figure out the one thing we don't know, which is this 20 days of interest stuff over here. But we do have everything we need to get there. We know the loan balance of $318,650.
18.
Mm-hmm. Times.
And we know, yep, the 4.75% interest rate. So 318,650 times 4.75%. That's
$135.87.
Yep. 87 or 88, either one works.
Speaker on.
And annual interest. And annual interest. And I need to break that down into daily because we need 20 days. So 15,135.88 divided by how many days are there in the year?
360.
360 will get me to daily.
It's 42.
That's $42 and about 4 cents a day. $42.04 per day, right around there. And how many days do I want?
20.
20.
So times 20 days. That to me looks like $840 and about 88 cents in accrued interest, right?
Yes.
Accrued. So now go back. What we wanted to know was 318,650 plus 20 days of interest. Don't we have everything we need now?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like to me we do. My loan is 318,650. My accrued interest is 840 and 88 cents. That is a payoff of $319,
$49.
$490 and 88 cents.
I forgot to add them together. Did all that work?
So you got the accrued of 840 and 88 cents?
Yes, and just forgot to add it to the 318.
Right.
Okay.
That's the payoff. Is the loan balance at the beginning of the month plus any interest that's built up over the course of the month. So now, here's practical question time when you're working in the real estate industry. If you're representing the seller and you're estimating for them how much money they can expect to walk away with at closing, should you tell them something about that loan balance they see on their mortgage statement? Because when they set loan balance on their mortgage statement, remember that doesn't include any interest that's built up, right? So should they expect their loan balance payoff to be bigger or smaller than what they see on that statement that they got at the beginning of the month?
Larger.
Should be larger. And you should be able to, could you now show them exactly how much larger? Because you're going to be able to see on the statement, here's your interest rate, here's your loan balance. Could you tell them this is what your payoff is actually going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You could, and that's why this is so useful, because you can actually sit there and show the seller, because listen, otherwise they don't think about this stuff. If you don't tell the seller this, how much do they think their loan payoff is? How much do they expect them to pay when they get to closing?
What they see on
The
that.
318,
318.
650.
They think they're paying 318,650 because that's what they see on their statement.
Yeah.
They don't think about the interest.
That they don't think about the interest. Is that other $840 is a substantial amount of money?
Yes.
Because that's
For some people.
$840 less they're going to get from that closing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very practical application. This is one of those things that when we actually present an offer, when I present an offer to a seller, I am estimating their loan payoff based on the proposed closing date in the offer. Does that make sense? Like if the offer says we're closing on October 15th, I'm going to have figured out what 15 days of interest is on their outstanding loan so that I can show them this is what your payoff will be if we close on that day that they've offered.
Calculate the payoff. Oh, wait, what is that?
All right.
So we'll have access to see exactly what their interest rate is, as well as a broker. We'll see exactly what their interest rate is on their loan.
You're going to ask them for a copy of their mortgage statement.
Okay.
Yeah, when you list the property for them, you're just going to say, hey, because here I'm going to tell you, I'm looking for a few things in their mortgage statement. Number one, I want to see, what the interest rate is and that sort of thing. Mainly, I want to see, is it current?
Exactly.
Would it be a material fact that you would have to disclose if they were delinquent on their mortgage and the foreclosure process had been begun?
Yes.
Yes, because you're marketing the property to buyers. They need to know you better close quick. This thing may be gone, maybe foreclosed on before you can close. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
So one of the first things I'm looking for when I ask for a copy of that mortgage statement when I list the property is so I can see if they're current. And I'm just going to file it away.
Something that's helped me a lot when we're doing this kind of math is I've pulled out my own mortgage statement.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're looking at these numbers, plugged in actual real numbers in my head, like that apply.
Mm-hmm.
So it's helped me to like navigate. So if somebody has, their own home and a statement they can use.
Yeah.
It's been very helpful to look at my own paperwork.
Pretty amazing when the veil gets dropped away from all of that, right? And you can do the math yourself. Okay. Number 10 says Andrew's obtaining a 5.25% interest rate mortgage loan for his $165,000 purchase. He's borrowing the full purchase price. His monthly PI payments on the loan are $911. Based on this payment, how much will be credited toward the principal balance of Andrew's loan on his first mortgage payment? Well, so a couple of things they tell us right here that are super important. Let me find the question first of all. How much will be credited toward the principal balance of his loan? They don't want to know interest. They want to know what? Principal. They want to know how much
the principal balance.
How much of this 911 is going toward principal? Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
So we know the biggest the answer can be, the smallest the answer could be 0, and the biggest it could be is what? 911. Because that's if the whole payment went toward principal, it would be 911. Does that make sense for everybody?
Okay.
But we also know logically, is it likely that the entire 911 is going toward principal? In fact, most of it's probably not. Where is most of that 911 probably going?
Interest.
Interest. Here's the thing. There's no way to answer this question. Not directly, anyway. We can't calculate how much of a payment is principal. What we can calculate is how much of a payment is interest.
Interest.
And once we know that, can we just look and say, well, whatever's left is going toward the principal? Does that make sense? If we calculate how much somebody's skimming off the top first, we can calculate what's left over after they skim it off. Does that make sense? So I like to think of the interest as being skimmed off by the bank from your payment. So let's calculate how much of that payment is going toward interest. Well, I can calculate the annual interest on this loan because I can say we've got $165,000 loan balance. And that is at a 5.25% interest rate. Make sense for everybody so far? Yeah? Okay. $165,000 times 5.25%. That is $8,662.50 in annual interest. And I do think it helps if you write things down like, oh, that's annual interest. Why does my pen not want to work all of a sudden? Because if I write down that that's annual interest, I don't know why my computer's so weird. Apparently it doesn't want to write right there. I'll write somewhere else. Once I know that's annual, can I break that down into monthly? Does that make sense for everybody? 86, 62, and 50 cents divided by what? 12 will get me to monthly interest. That's $7.21.88 in monthly interest. How much did I say we were paying?
911.
$9.11. So of that $9.11, we now know that $7.21 and 88 cents is getting skimmed off the top for interest. That leaves us with $189 and about 12 or 13 cents that's going toward the principal. How do we feel about that? Right? And it really is a building block process. Understand the basics of interest, and then, okay, I got monthly and I got daily. And so we're just building up these concepts. Number 11 is the next most natural progression. What is his loan balance after he makes that payment? Well, just like when we were doing accrued interest before and we were adding on, here we're taking away because we're paying the loan down. We owed $165,000. How much of a payment did we make on that $165,000? Not what was our monthly payment, because that included a bunch of interest, but how much of a payment did we actually make on the loan?
$189.12.
$189.12. And so what I come up with for a new loan balance after that payment is $164,810 and 88 cents. And 80, if you got 87, 88, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense for everybody how we got to that loan balance though? We figured out how much of that payment was basically being skimmed off the top for interest first, and then seeing what little bit was left over. I think of it like a pocketbook almost. You know, the pocketbook started with $911 in there, and the first thing somebody did was took money out for the interest. And then we're seeing how much is left, because that's what's going toward the principal.
Hey Travis,
Yes.
can you, like, I don't need to go over the math portion again, but like just the question of number 10 of like how you knew the steps. Because like once I understand how to do the math, but like I guess the question of how you know what math to do, that's the biggest thing.
So you got to find the question first, which is what I highlighted in yellow there. How much will be credited toward the principal balance? Well, how much is credited toward principal is a payment, right? Does that make
Right.
sense? But is it the whole payment?
No.
No, it's some small portion of. So I need to know how much of that $911 is going to get credited toward principal. The only way to figure that is how much is coming out first for the interest. You always got to calculate the interest first. And so it really has to be a concept. You can't memorize steps
Yeah.
with these because there's too many possibilities of the way it can be presented to you. It really is sort of working your way mentally through knowing, okay, a payment is just composed of two things, principal and interest. They want to know the principal. I got to get rid of the interest.
Okay. Because like whenever I did it, I solved it to get to the point of the 721.88, and then I was like, okay, what do I do? And then I like stopped because I was like, I have no idea.
So here's my question: When you wrote down 721.88, did you write down what it was, or did you just write down that number?
I didn't write down what it was. So that was my first problem. Because then I thought, okay, well, do I take that 721.88 and subtract it from the loan amount?
Well, and so if you had written down, and so this is why I like to label things. I know I feel like your 7th grade pre-algebra teacher. I hate it when they screamed it at me too. Like, show your work, label stuff. It does make a difference because when you're trying to, really get these ideas formulated, if you can see, visually, okay, that's the monthly interest, then it will click in your brain to say, well, you don't subtract the interest from the loan balance, you subtract the principal. So it would hopefully click in that you got another step.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Number 12 is, we'll do number 12 because it is, this is a good example of a test question. It kind of ties everything we've talked about together in one package. So it makes it a good one to talk about in that regard. It says Travis purchased a home in Garner with a sales price of $175,000 and a 90% loan-to-value loan. What is the remaining principal balance of the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage after 2 principal and interest payments have been made on the 4.5% loan? I always like to find my question. What is the remaining balance of the loan? There's my question. Okay, so what's the remaining balance of a loan? I know that with any loan, the loan balance is going to be the loan amount minus a principal payment. And that equals the new loan balance. Well, they want us to do it twice, right? It says after 2 principal, but it's just going to be 2 payments. Does that make sense for everybody? So we're really just going to do the math twice. Same math, we're just going to do it twice. That's all that's going to happen. So talk to me. What is my starting point here? What is my loan balance? Do we know, or do we have to figure that out?
Figure it out.
You have to figure it out.
We got to figure it out. we know that my purchase price is $175,000, and we're borrowing 90% of that. So to figure that out, that is 157.5 for a loan balance. So here's the thing. At very most, we know our loan balance is 157.5. But we know the final answer is going to be minus 2 payments. Right? Everybody following on that mindset at least? So it's going to be 157.5 minus 2 payments. It says the payments are $750 each. Well, so can't we just go 157.5 minus 750 minus 750? Isn't that how you do this to come up with their loan balance? Wouldn't that work?
No, because most
No.
interest.
No, because a lot of those payments are going toward what?
Interest.
Interest. See, this doesn't make any sense because we know that a lot of that 750 is actually going toward interest on a monthly basis. So here's what we need to do. Figure out how much is going toward interest and skim it off the top first. Does that make sense for everybody? Let's get rid of the interest. So let's look at pay, and I'm just going to label them as payment number 1 and 2. We're looking at number 1 right here. Here's what payment number 1 is going to be broken down to look like. My loan balance is $157,500, and they told me that my interest rate is 4.5%. My pen is thrown across the floor. Hang on. I kind of need that. All right, 157.5 for a loan balance, and at 4.5% annual interest. That's $7,087.50 in annual interest. But we make that payment monthly.
Travis, I think I made, are we on number 12? Okay, I'm sorry. I was on number 14. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're on 12. So how do I break that annual interest down into monthly? I'm going to divide it by what?
12.
Well,
By
12.
12. So here's going to be 7,087.50 divided by 12 will give me my monthly interest.
590.63.
Yep. That's $590.63 in monthly interest. Now, payment number 1. What's the amount of payment number 1? They told us that, right? $750. So payment number 1, let's break it down into pieces. Payment number 1. $750 total. $590.63 of that is interest. If I have those two numbers, can I figure out what the principal is in that payment number 1? Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah,
Yes.
you would subtract, right?
I can subtract. That's exactly right. So I can take that away from the $750 total payment, and that gives me $159.38 in principal for payment number 1. How much did I owe before payment number 1?
175,000.
I owed $175,000. How much did I pay off with payment number 1?
159.38.
159.38 is my principal payment on payment number 1. So my loan balance after that first payment is 174. Oh, sorry, 157.5. Thank you. Thank you. See, that's why you gotta pay attention. Thanks, Julia. Sorry about that. See, I do it too. 157,500 is my loan balance. 175 was my sales price, I think. Minus 159.38. That leaves me with a balance of 157,340.62 after how many payments?
1.
One payment. How we all feel about that?
Okay, Travis, go back, because I just got lost somewhere.
Okay, where'd you get lost? Talk
So
to me.
I said
Yeah,
175,000 minus the 159.
Look, don't say that because that was a mistake on my part. Remember, the 175,000 is the purchase price.
Okay. So
We're
it's
not
150.
paying off the purchase price. We're paying off the loan, and the loan amount was Julia. Correct me, and I'm sorry
It's
about that.
155.
Right,
57. Okay.
157,500 is the loan balance, and then we
Got
paid
it.
off $159.38, which left us with 157,340 after one payment.
Do you think you could explain the first part of the question, how we got to this part? Because I kind of missed that.
I don't know what do you mean? The first part of the question, how we got to this part, I need more detail.
Like before we started doing after payment 1, before number 1, like the math done before that.
You mean calculating the loan balance itself?
Yes.
Because that's the only thing we did was calculate the loan balance. So right here, we need to know how much we borrowed.
So,
They didn't give us the loan balance.
so now we're saying,
And that was 90% of that $175,000 purchase price.
7.
So
Oh yeah. So that's how we get. Oh, okay.
that's where the loan,
That's how much they gave you.
right, that's how much the loan was for. And then that's where we started the math of calculating the interest on that loan. So we had the loan balance here of 157,500 at 4.5% interest, gave us annual interest of $7,087.50.
Yes.
And then we divided that by 12 over here to break it down into $5.90.63 monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And here is where we looked at the payment and broke the payment down. We said, okay, we have a $750 total payment, and we have $590.63 in monthly interest. So that must leave $159.38 going toward the principal. And so that gets paid off right here.
Okay.
We started out owing for that one payment, $157,500.
Okay.
We paid off $159.38, and that left us a balance of $157,340.62 after that payment.
Okay. Okay. I'm caught up now. Yeah, I just didn't know you found the loan balance itself first.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now, they wanted to know after how many payments though?
2.
2. So what we need to do is that whole process over again, except for payment number 2. Aren't we starting with a new loan balance?
Oh.
Payment number 2 starts with us owing $157,340. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we calculate the interest on payment number 2, we're going to start at $157,340.62 because we owe less this month. Still at the same interest rate, which is 4.5%. So now when we do that, we get $7,080
and 30 cents.
33 cents. I got
Yeah, 30 cents.
You got 30 even?
Yeah,
157, 340, and 62 cent times 4.5%. I got 30. I got 0.3279 and 33 cents.
okay.
I got the same number.
I mean, either one, it's not that. I mean, again, that their numbers aren't gonna be that close on the test, but yeah, I do have 33 cents. Now,
157.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. So just like we did in the above step up there, we need to break that because that's annual interest.
So we can't use the previous month's same exact interest rate, interest amount. We have to recalculate it.
Rate, but not the interest amount, because the
Oh.
interest is going to be less. The
Yes.
interest is less because the loan balance is less.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
can't just repeat the process over and over and over. And if you notice that, look at the comparison of these two numbers. Look at the annual
62
interest
cents.
there and the annual interest there. It's a different number, right? And that's because of the lower loan balance. Okay, so same thing we need to do here. We need to break that down into monthly interest. So we've got $7,080.33 divided by 12 gives us $5.93.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, oh, three, not three. Per month in monthly interest. Okay. And so I'm going to do the same thing that I did with payment number one. I'm going to do again with payment number two. I'm going to break it down into its pieces. Payment number two. How much is the amount of payment number two? Don't we pay the same amount every month?
Yes,
Yeah.
So it's still how much total?
750.
750
$750 total
minus the 590,
minus 5.93
590.03.
in interest.
It's $159.97.
159.97 going toward the principal. And then finally, last step, all the way to the end, my loan balance for payment number two started at 150, 340, and 62 cents minus the 159.97 that I'm paying off in principal.
Mm-hmm.
So 157, 340, and 62 cents. Oops.
Minus.
I always forget that I can backspace if I'm using a phone instead of a calculator. I'm so used to a calculator, I just hit clear as soon as I make a mistake. 159.97. It looks like 157.
60.57.
180 and about
65.
65 cents.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's after two payments.
After that problem, I think we can start our Saturday drinking.
Those are long.
God.
Oh yeah, 157. Okay.
Those are long. Now, I mean, in theory, could you keep going 3 payments, 4 payments,
Mm-hmm.
but
So you just continue to do the
it's
thing.
a long time, right? And
Yeah.
people say, oh, I need more practice with this. Well, guess what? You got 360 payments there. I think you'd be pretty well practiced by the time.
Oh, on the test, how many of these are they likely to give us? Like one, right?
One question.
Okay. Okay, good. Because 10 minutes on one question,
Right.
Jesus knows my troubles.
Well, and that's why my recommendation is always with, with the testing, my recommendation is always to do the math questions last. Because they are the most time consuming. You can always skip questions and come back to them. That's my recommendation in general. Questions last, just come back to them because of the time. That way you're not stressed about it.
There's not an easier way to get to that without having to do all of those steps?
Nope.
Okay.
That is the only path to get to that.
That is intense. Like,
And by the way, they will have as an answer choice, if you had just taken this number right here and multiplied it times 2. They'll have that as an answer choice. If you just tried to shortcut it and go, oh, they're paying off $159, but they're making 2 payments, that'll be an answer choice. Trust me. They will, if they ask you this question, they want you to do the whole thing.
Travis, how many math questions is on here? I mean, for the test.
There are, it's about 30% of the national section, so 12 to 14 questions, generally speaking.
Okay.
Oh, but if you get the math down and you get 30% of that is math questions.
Well, that's the thing. If you have the math nailed, you know you're going to get those right. Those become almost like freebies, right? You know, and listen, don't feel like that means you have to get every single one. Get the math questions that you feel relatively comfortable with. Get those nailed, because then you'll know I'm going to get those right every single time. Because once you have, can we agree that once you have a math topic, you're not going to miss those questions, right? Once you know, because there's no debating about, oh, well, it could be this one or it could be, no. Math has a right answer and a wrong answer, not which is the best of these 4 answer types.
You have to pay attention though to the daily and monthly and that kind. That's where I get caught.
You do, and I well. That's why I have to label it for myself to keep my sanity. Okay. So I'm not going to do another one of those. I do want to look at number 15, just one of the ones on number 15, only because it asks for an interim interest payment. And we haven't done interim interest yet. Let's just do B here real quickly. Talk to me about interim interest, this interim word. That means in the future. Well, it's always a portion of a month. So if interim interest is a portion of a month and it's for the future, if we're looking at B here, number 15B, what date is the interim interest going to start on? What's the starting date for our interim interest?
February 3rd.
February 3rd.
February 3rd through when?
The 30th.
February the 30th. And I know February the 30th doesn't actually exist, but in this class, every month has what?
30 days.
30 days. So, you know, February is just like any other month. Now, here's the real question. From February 3rd through the 30th, how many days is that? That's
28.
28.
That is 28 days. So what they're really asking us is how much is 28 days of interest on this loan? Well, once we know that, we pretty much home free, because we know interest on the loan is always the loan balance times the interest rate of 4.25%. And so 286,500 times 4.25%. I cannot type today. There we go. 12,176 and a quarter, 25 cents in annual interest. But since they want 28 days, don't I have to break it down into daily?
Yes.
It doesn't matter that they want 28 days. What matters is they want days. I have to first get to days. So I'm going to say for daily, I'm going to say, here's my annual 12,176 and 25 cents divided by 12. That gives me monthly interest of $1,000 $14.69. Monthly interest. Or I don't even know why I did that. I guess I did that because I like to show it both ways. Some people like to go to monthly and then divide it by 30.
I was about to say, couldn't you just go ahead and do divided by 360?
And that's
I
what
was wondering.
that's
I
what
was
I
thinking that too.
usually do. But some people do like to go by 12 and then by 30. Either way, it's going to get you to 33.82 per what?
Daily.
Day.
And they want how many of those days?
20.
28.
28 of those days. So 33.82 per day times 28 days.
947.04.
Yep. I got 947.04 as well. In interim interest.
Okay, so interim we count forward in the calendar, and then for accrued we count backwards.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And interim is the gotcha one. I won't say tricky. It's not tricky. It's just that it gets you because the number of days is trickier to deal with. Accrued, as Melissa said earlier, if it closes on the 3rd, it's 3 days of accrued. If it closes on the 5th, it's 5 days of accrued. It's just whatever the date is, that's the accrued. But interim, because we're counting forward, is a little bit trickier to come up with the number of days. That's the key to that question, really.
But you always have to count that day that you closed.
That's right. Count the first day. That's exactly right. Closing.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So technically you could say 30 minus the whatever the number is, and then add 1 to that.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. You can do minus 30 and then add 1. Sure.
right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I want you to look at number 18 and then we'll do 19. And we want to talk about interest.
Travis,
Yes.
can I ask a really dumb question?
Sure.
I multiplied 33.82 times 28 and got 946.96.
You multiplied 33.82
times 28.
times 28.
Uh-huh. I even made my son do it. I'm like, come here and do these numbers.
What it
and I
is,
got
what it is,
946.96.
the 82 was a rounded number, and I never took it out of the calculator, so I never rounded. And that's why I say rounding doesn't make a difference. Because let me tell you what they're going to ask you on the test. To the nearest dollar, how much is the interim interest charge? So the answer is 947.
Well, I thought maybe my calculator was broken. I couldn't figure. I was like, I know I'm putting these numbers in right. What's happening?
You're exactly right. But it's actually, if you do $12.176.25 divided by 360, it's actually 33.8229. So when you do 0.82, you're rounding off a little bit. And then when you multiply that out times 28 days, it can throw you off by a few pennies. That's all.
Okay. Just making sure I wasn't crazy.
No, you're not. Well, you might be, but at least not. This is not.
After due diligence, I might be.
This is not one of those things. So these questions deal with interest over the life of a loan. Look at number 18. It says Carlos wishes to borrow $10,000 at 7% annual interest for 10 years with monthly principal and interest payments of $116.11. How much will he repay in total once the note is paid off? These questions people tend to, because we do so much math with the interest rate, people try to make these super hard and be like, okay, I got to use that 7% interest rate. Do I need to use that 7% interest rate here? Not at all. how much is the payment? If you want to know how much somebody's paying back, you just start at their payment. Aren't they giving us the payment? How much is the payment? 116.11, correct?
Yes,
Monthly
times 12,
times 12 months a year times
10.
10 years. Can we do that? Just to kind of simplify things. 116.11 times 12 times 10 years. Looks like to me he's going to pay back $13,933.20. Does that make sense for everybody? Everybody okay with that statement? He's going to pay back. Are you not
Yes.
okay with that, Brendan? Are you shaking your head or are you shaking something else?
Okay. Can you start from the beginning? Because you lost
Yeah,
me.
me too.
Let me ask you a simpler question.
Okay.
You're paying me $100 a month
Mm-hmm.
for $500 for 5 months. How
Okay.
much are you paying me back?
500.
How'd you do that? Oh my God, I'm blown away.
I'm a genius.
Yes. All you did was you took my monthly payment and you multiplied it times the number of months I made that payment, right?
Right.
Well, look at this. The monthly payment is how much?
It's the, oh gosh,
16.
the 116.11.
Right. And how many months are there in a year?
12.
And how many years are we making that payment?
10.
So I'm making that payment every month, 12 months a year for 10 years. That means on that loan, I will pay back $13,933.20.
That's it. So there's nothing else that you have to do.
That's it.
Hey, Travis, I have a question.
Yeah.
How come when we calculate the other math problem, when we just did that giant math problem, we had to calculate the interest and it was different every single month. But then when we do this problem, it's not different every single month and we're just shooting straight through.
It is different. The interest is different every single month. But they didn't ask us what the interest is on any particular month here. They're going to ask us what the interest was for the whole loan. When they're asking you for the whole loan, it's much more straightforward because they're not asking you to look month to month how much the interest payment is. They're saying for the whole loan. Well, for the whole loan's a lot easier because it's just what did you pay back versus what did you borrow.
So like essentially like in the end, they will equal up to the total amount that you pay back. Like what every month the interest is.
I'm sorry?
Like how it was said that every month we normally have to recalculate the new interest or the new loan balance and then get all that math.
Right.
Here we just do times 12 times 10 using the same number because in the end it'll equal out to the same amount.
Right. Here's the thing. That payment of 116.11 is not interest every month. That's the total payment. That's principal and interest. So I can't tell you how much of that 116.11 is interest on any particular month. But what I can tell you is on every month, I am paying the same 116.11 total. Remember, the monthly payment stays the same every month. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so in total, how much have I paid back over the whole 10 years? That's the $13,933. Does that make sense for everybody? If I make all my payments for 10 years, that's how much I pay back.
So that 10,000 and then the 7% is not needed at all.
Yet, because they haven't asked you. You're trying to race down the speedway. They didn't ask you for that. They just want to know how much are we going to pay back.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I asked you a question earlier. I said, if you were paying me $100 a month for 5 months, how much would you pay me back? What was your answer?
500.
How much did you borrow? Oh no. You need to know.
Oh.
What was your interest rate? Oh no. You didn't
Yeah.
need to know. All you needed to know was what? How much you pay
Uh-huh.
and how long you pay it.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
No,
It doesn't?
no.
What
I
does
mean-
it make sense about that?
I mean, it
Listen,
doesn't have to make sense as long as I know how to do the math. I guess it doesn't have to make sense.
But it should make sense. If somebody's, listen, if you know what somebody pays every month, that's just a number, right? And you know how many times you're going to make that payment. You do leasing. Could you calculate how much somebody's going to pay for the total value of their lease?
Yes,
You would take their monthly payment and multiply it times the number of months of the lease, right?
correct.
That's all we're doing. That's
Okay.
it. That's it. Now, the next step in this progression, though, is if you look at number 19, how much, and it says 3, it means, I don't know why it says that. In the question above, how much interest will Carlos pay over the life of that 10-year note? Here's the thing. This is the total payback. How much of that was not Carlos's money, though? How much of that was the loan?
7%.
That's an interest rate. How much did he borrow?
Oh,
10,000.
10,000.
He borrowed $10,000. He's paying back $13,000.
So that's the interest.
The difference
Subtracted.
between the two is the
The
interest. So he's
Total.
paying back a total of $13,933.20 total, which we could say is principal and interest. He borrowed $10,000, which is the same thing as the principal. So his interest is the $3,933.20. Now, Melissa, the reason we're able to do that is we're not asking how much interest he paid on any single month like we were in the previous question. That was a way of calculating how much of each month is interest. This is just a big old sort of like, if you kept the loan for the whole time, how much in total would you pay in interest?
It's all the different interests combined together.
It's every month's worth of interest. Right. This is if you sat there and individually calculated every month's interest for 10 years and added them all together, this would be the number.
Yeah, and they would each be different because after every month it goes down.
That's right. But this is a much easier way of getting the total than doing it that way, right?
Yeah.
It would take a long time to do it the other way.
Yeah.
So like you tell us all the time, don't think too hard.
These
Get rid of the fluff.
are very much ones that we don't have to think very hard on at all. And so let's do number 20 here and look at it. It says, what's the total interest paid over the life of a 15-year loan for $50,000 issued at 6% annual interest rate with monthly PI payments of $421.93? Whenever you're asked for this total interest paid over the life of a loan, that's the key phrase here, you need to know the monthly payment. Do we have the monthly payment?
Yeah.
And how much is that monthly?
$421.93.
$421.93 monthly times 12 months a year
Times the 15.
times 15 years. That's exactly right. Good. So 421.93 times 12 months a year times 15 years. That looks like to me a grand total payback of $75,947.40. But they want to know what's the interest paid for that, don't we need to make a comparison to this number right up here that we borrowed? Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
We're paying back a grand total of 75,000, but we only borrowed how much?
50.
50,000 borrowed on or loan amount. And so that leaves us with interest over the life of the loan of $25,947.40.
It's basically how much you pay for all of those 15 years.
That's right. So if for all the 15 years, I'm going to pay $75,947.40. But of that, 50,000 of it was the actual loan amount. So the remainder that I paid was interest.
And that 25,000 can be calibrated in different amounts monthly, depending on when you're paying or not.
Exactly. Every month would be a different amount of interest. But if you were to calculate them and add them all together, you would come up with that same 25.
Exactly.
Now, if you listen, you fully have my permission. If you would like to do 15 years worth of payments and calculate the interest on each one of them and the loan balance after each one, and then add up all of those 180 payments, you got my permission to do that. I think the exam might take
a lot of work.
2 hours if you want to, but if you want to do it that way, you can. Okay. How do we feel about that? A little better?
A lot of interest.
I'm sorry, Brittany?
I said, that's just a lot of interest to me.
It is.
Like,
It is. And that number gets uglier and uglier the longer that term gets. 30-year notes get a lot uglier than that.
So if you refinance and everything and you can get a lower interest rate, then obviously it wouldn't be that much.
Right. The lower the interest rate, the lower the monthly interest component is. And so the less interest you would pay over the life of the loan. That's right.
That's how the banks stay in business.
That's it. That's it.
Or pay the loan off early.
I think about the last thing that
As long as there's no penalty. Sometimes there are penalties.
Right. Make sure there's not a prepayment penalty. I think the last thing we need to talk about are discount points, and then we will have covered every finance math topic. Discount points are, remember, prepaid interest. It's just a method of, we call it buying the rate now. Why do we call it that? Because the borrower is paying money in advance, and what do they get in exchange for that fee that they pay up front? They get a lower what?
Interest.
Interest rate?
A lower interest rate for the whole life of their loan. So we call it buying the rate down. It's basically bribing the lender to give you a lower interest rate. I'll give you something right now, so you just give me a lower rate and take care of me for the next 30 years. That's what discount points are. Here's what we know about discount points. They lower the interest rate by how much? I mean, what is the amount that they lower the interest rate?
Discount points.
1/8.
1/8. So they lower the rate by 1/8 of a percent.
Oh.
But that is very different from what they cost. What do they cost?
1%.
They
1%.
cost 1% of the loan amount. So basically, you can look at it this way. Aren't you paying the lender 8 times the value of them? In other words, if they're only lowering the rate by 1/8 of a percent, but you got to pay 1% to get it, aren't you paying 8 times more? Does that make sense? Just like as a mental thing. That's why lenders love them. They love it when you buy discount points. Yes, Amber, we will. We will for sure. Okay. So with discount points, the cost of them is simply 1% of any loan amount. And if you look at this question, it says Ariana is purchasing a home for $418,000 and obtaining a 90% loan to value loan for 30 years with an annual interest rate of 5%. She has decided to purchase 2 discount points to lower her rate over the life of the loan. What will she be charged on the closing settlement statement for the discount points? There's the question finally. What will she be charged? Let me ask you a question. If they want to know what she's going to be charged, are we dealing with the 1/8%, or are we dealing with the 1%? Which one deals with the cost of the discount points?
The 1%.
The 1%. This one over here. Each discount point. And by the way, how many of them is she buying?
2.
2. So would it be fair to say then, is it a fair statement to simply say she is going to pay 2% of her loan amount?
Yeah.
Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Because
So each
discount point costs what?
1%.
1%, and she wants to buy 2 of them, so she's going to pay 2% of her loan amount. Does that follow for everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So 2% of her loan amount. Do we know her loan amount?
Yes.
We do?
No, because we have to do
Oh,
the 90%.
no. We didn't do
We didn't
that.
find it.
Okay.
We know her purchase price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we also know she's got a 90% LTV. So we can get to a loan amount, because we can take her purchase price of $418,000, and we can take her 90% loan to value ratio,
$376,200.
$376,200, very good, is her loan amount. And then we go right back to what we said right there. She's going to pay what?
2% of that loan amount.
2% of that loan amount. So here's what that looks like. 376,200 times 2%.
7,524.
So she's going to pay $7,524,000 in the fee for her discount points to buy that rate down.
Oh, God.
It's a big fee, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to purchase the discount points?
Just to purchase the discount points. That would be on the day she closed on that loan. She would owe the bank $7,000. She would have to write a check to her lender for $7,524 on that day.
And remind me again, why would you do that?
You're
Lower the rate.
You're crazy. That's why you would. No, I mean,
Well, we've already established that.
the idea is if you really were going to keep this loan for 30 years, it would be to your benefit to have the lower interest rate. But it does it make sense that you're basically paying a big whopping fee up front to save a little bit every month? You know, and so you have to decide, is it going to be worth it? Well, if you kept the loan for 30 years, yeah, it would be worth it. You'd come out way better. But most people don't keep loans for 30 years.
No.
Can you buy discount points after everything has been closed? Like if you refinance, could you go in?
Well, refinance is a new closing.
Yeah.
Remember, a refinance is a whole new loan. You're paying off your old loan. You're taking out a new loan.
Could you then do discount points for that or no?
Sure, you can do discount points anytime you do a new loan.
Because I guess I understand the point of a discount point for the longevity of it, but coming up with like $7,524, you know, when you close the loan, that's just obscene amount to me. Yeah. And I just don't see that being really functional
Realistic.
for a whole lot of people or realistic.
It's not. And so very few people elect to do this.
Okay. So people just go for the higher interest rate
And
and
they would take the higher interest rate and a little bit higher monthly payment. Okay, my payment might be, my payment might be $100 higher a month, but that's better than paying $7,500 in a fee.
okay.
So is this like if you want to avoid paying PMI because you don't have your 20% to put down? Is this where this comes in, or am I just?
No, you're way overthinking it. This is literally just somebody who wants to lower their interest rate. That's it. They're planning to be in this loan for the long haul, so they want to do everything they can to get a lower interest rate right now.
All right.
Travis, I had a friend that was because of divorce, kind of got in a sticky situation financially. And
Okay.
so it messed up the credit. And therefore, he had to have a higher interest rate when he went to purchase his home, but he had the cash flow.
Ah,
So this to him was the best because of his credit. He couldn't get the lower interest rate.
gotcha. So it was a way he had some cash so he could buy
Right,
the rate down, and he obviously planned to keep the loan for a long time. So
right,
he figured it would save him money over time, and he'd be able to better afford the house payment.
right, yeah.
That makes sense for them.
Would we ever have to know when you wrote on the side the 1/8 of the interest
You will never have to do math with that.
on it? Yeah.
Know it. They may ask you on the test, what impact does a discount point have on someone's interest rate? And you'll need to know that the impact is it lowers their interest rate by 1/8%.
Okay.
So in essence, this person would be lowering their interest rate by 1/4%, because that's 2/8.
Todos tienen manzanilla,
1/4.
pero no había agua, no sabía que me ha hecho esto. Pues tú puedes.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going to do number 22, and then that'll be it for today. Who sets the standard of 1/8 for the cost and 1% for the 1/8 for the change and 1% for the cost? Gigi, it's been that way since the beginning of time, as far as I know. I mean, every time I've ever been taught discount points, those were the numbers we've used. So it's just been a standard for a long
Wishes to
time.
purchase property at Clay.
Okay. Leslie wishes to purchase property in Clayton and is obtaining a $215,000 5-year interest-only loan. The market interest rates offered by the lender are at 5%, but Leslie wishes to buy the rate down to 4.25%, requiring her to purchase 6 discount points. They have given you so much information, more than what you need here. What is the total charge to Leslie on the closing statement for the discount points fee? Here's the question. What's the total charged for the discount points? Well, what do we know about discount points? Each point
is 1%.
1%.
costs 1% of the loan amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do we know the loan amount?
Yes, 215.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to do anything to get there. We know that the loan is for $215,000. And we know that she's purchasing a total of what?
6.
Discount points. So couldn't we just say times 6%?
Yeah.
How many of those?
12,900.
How many of those do you now hope you see on as far as math questions?
All of them.
Yes.
Oh, amen.
We probably won't see one. It's so easy.
You will actually, because people, you know why you'll see it, Dave? Because people go out of their mind trying to use all those numbers. Man, they got to use that 5%. They got to use that 4.25%. They divide those two, and then they multiply times this, and they subtract that. I mean, you look at it, and you're like,
Right.
no, it's just the loan amount times 6%. That's all you need. Actually, they give you a lot of these simplified math questions with just way more information than you actually need, because what they really are testing is, have you just memorized steps, or do you actually understand the concept? But I think that's a pretty good stopping point. That's a really good review of the finance. How many of you feel better right now than you felt an hour and 45 minutes ago.
I do.
definitely felt better.
Good, good. That's the goal. And that's what we're trying to, you know, I want you to be confident with the math pieces, okay? All right, I will email out the answers to the full worksheet so you've got all the final answers. Other than that, keep working and have a good weekend, everybody.
Travis.
Thank you, Travis.
Do you think you could also like upload this math review on the
I will.
YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Because there isn't one. I was looking back. But there
There's
isn't.
not one. I will get this up.
All right. Thank you so much, Travis.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one, Travis.
You
Y'all
too.
enjoy your week.